All right, what's up, everybody? Today, it's another episode for Implausible Podcast. Today, we're doing our business segment, and our guest today is a good friend of ours, Kanice. So we have you, do your own introduction. Let us know who is Kanice, right? What do you like to do? You know, things of that nature.
Okay. Wow. That's such a it's such a common question, right? Everywhere you go, like job applications, schools, and then even meeting new people, like, man, who are you? What do you like to do? And I never have the same answer for it. And it never comes easily either. But recently, I guess I've really just been leaning into me as a writer. And I've really been falling into that identity just as a poet. Um, and over the past year, just obviously being in this pandemic and everything going virtual, I've had a lot more access to virtual workshops with poets that I admire and poets that I've like been watching for a while now in terms of spoken word poetry and stuff. And so kind of networking in that sense has also been really interesting in terms of me figuring out who I am as well. Because at the end of the day, I'm only 23, right? Like I don't know who I am. Like I'm trying to graduate college by the end of the year, then who knows where life is taking me after that, you know? So, but yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
So you mentioned about writing. So how can our viewers get to see your work? Like, do you have social media or a
Yeah, I
website or
mean,
something like that?
primarily, no, primarily for my writing, the most I have is just my Instagram page for now. In the future, I do eventually want to build a website for just my own kind of things on the side. But my goal right now with my writing is to have a book published by my birthday next year. So we're in June, so that's about 9 months, and that's a pretty tight deadline. So that's what I've really been working towards. And then once I have something solid that I can put on said website, that's when eventually, like, I'll be able to start building it. But for now, I've just been trying to gain an audience through Instagram. And my tag on Instagram is awkwardly.chaotic. You just spell chaotic with a K.
Cool, that's cool.
Nice. So my question would be like, what about poetry or writing attracted you to it?
I don't necessarily know what attracted me to it specifically. I remember where it happened. It was in middle school, and we had a free period, and our substitute teacher was this really strict, bald dude, Mr. Nicholson. And for whatever reason, he just let us do what we wanted to do that period as long as we stayed quiet about it. So I pulled out a book and I just started writing. And that was like my first memory of a poem that I wrote that was outside of like a school assignment. And since then, it kind of just became a hobby and something that I always came back to. Um, as I got older, it just became like an outlet of sorts. If I felt like I had things that I wanted to talk about that maybe other people might not understand right away and I needed to process first, then I would just try to write it out. Um, and yeah, after a while, I just started sharing it, and it was kind of cool to see shared in the experiences that I thought were unique to me. Yes.
That's cool. Shout out to Mr. Nicholson. So
Hope he's doing good wherever he's at, man. He had a habit of like throwing chalk at people's heads if they were talking in class. It's hilarious.
Oh no.
so you mentioned that your IG page was called Awkwardly Chaotic, right? So explain that. How did you come across that name? Was it like a random thing or was it like a
Awkwardly chaotic came from I wouldn't say it was necessarily a random thing. I know that at first, when I started posting my writing online, I didn't really want to put my name behind it. Um, I wanted the focus to be on my words. And outside of like my friends who knew that I was starting this page separately for my writing, like not many people obviously would, unless I put my face on there for whatever reason. Um, and so for me, the idea of chaos, I guess, like always it circles back to again having this stuff in your mind that you want to be able to get out and process judgment and in a safe place, right? And usually that should start with yourself in one way or the other. And for me, it came out in writing. But I also recognize that not all of my poems made sense at first. Like there's a lot of editing that goes behind it before I finally share the final piece. And yeah, like I think for me, it's more about just embracing that process, I guess, and knowing that perfection isn't really a thing, and I'm okay with that, you know.
Nice, nice. Um, what's one tip to our viewers that you would give who's interested in writing their own poetry? What would that be?
Ooh, um, I think one thing that I've been learning myself more recently is that you have to make a habit out of it, right? Like it's one thing to be good at writing, and then there's one thing to make a skill and make a talent out of it. And if you don't practice consistently enough, like sometimes you'll feel like you lost your mojo and it takes a while to get that momentum back. So even if it's 2 to 3 sentences a day, like keep a little journal, free write a little, and just get that out there and make a habit out of it. And it makes it a lot easier to get to that stage where you're finally like, okay, I want to start piecing these together in more like cohesive type things, I guess.
That's cool.
True.
So I got a question, right? So like I've read a good amount of your poetry and I like it. I've noticed that a lot of your there's a good amount of your poems that uh how can I say this? Like I could tell that your religion and your family play a big part in how you create your poems. Would you say those two things and in expressing those two things, your relationship with those two things is a big inspiration for you, or do you see that as something else?
No, I think you're kind of dead on about that. I know that there are a lot of poets who are able to separate themselves from the speaker of the poem, if that makes sense. But for me, like a lot of my poems have been personally reflective, unless I say otherwise. But for sure, religion and family are two things that come up a lot, especially now, I guess, when I'm like coming into a pretty transitional phase in my life, right? Like I said, I intend to graduate college by the end of the year. I have to figure out what I want to do with things after that. And, you know, my personal goals don't necessarily align with what my family has in mind for me. So it's something that I have to learn to navigate. And it comes up often in my writing because it's how I learn to, again, get that out there and process it and see how I actually feel about it when I put my emotion to the side, I guess.
What's one word of advice you would give to somebody who may be going through the same things you go through?
Uh, as cliche as it sounds, you're just not alone in it, you know? Like I thought I was. I thought because I didn't really grow up around a lot of Bengali friends, like a lot of my schools were predominantly Black and Hispanic. And so I didn't really have a lot of South Asian friends that I could relate to about this kind of stuff who were like my age or who also came from immigrant families, and kind of understood what having bicultural identity was, you know. And so I would just say that it takes a while, but you can start looking for resources or support groups. And when I say that, I don't even mean like therapy or anything, but like there are literal just Instagram groups out there with people coming together just to share their experiences and kind of validate the fact that like, bro, you're not alone in this, you know, like I'm going through something similar with my family and it's something that we can work through together.
Okay, that's cool. I
Okay.
like that.
I know that all of us probably have experienced this term, writer's block. Especially like, doing assignments or like essays that you may have had in school, but as a writer and as a poet, how do you deal with writer's block?
So writer's block really used to get to me, and I let it get to me for too long at one point. I think there was a time
Uh,
um,
did, did,
Ooh.
and
oh, wait, hold on,
I was a
Khalid.
writer. I don't think I could see my.
Oh, you started just
Is
lagging
this
out
the
a
internet?
little bit there. Yeah. You say you seem to be fine now, so you could try again.
I'm gonna. Okay. No, I was just saying that writer's block is something that I had to learn to get over, and I didn't really until very recently either. You know, it's not really writer's block. I realized it's more of a fear that you have within yourself of writing something bad. And you kind of just have to get over that fear because at one point or another, your writing is gonna suck. Like you're gonna go through your drafts and you're just gonna be like, what was I thinking at this point? This metaphor is like so simple and cliche, and I do so much better now. But you have to get over that again, that want for perfectionism, so that when you do go back and see the drafts that are asked, you also recognize the growth, I guess, that came from that, you know. At the end of the day, the most I would say is again, just keep writing, even if it is 2 to 3 sentences a day, just to keep that habit there so that eventually when you feel like you get over that want to create something perfect, you can just fall into the weirdness of writing, I guess.
How often do you write in, let's say, a week's period?
So currently I've been taking a lot of writing workshops within the week. So during these workshops, I would say I have to write 3 times a week as it is. And then in between those workshops, I'll try to like work on the poems, edit them a little bit, or even just free write and start something new of my own. Giant document of working through them and see if there's a line or two that comes to me and just keep adding. And it kind of just works like that for me.
That's cool. Would you recommend doing workshops for writers who's trying to improve or just like hone in on their skills?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was really nerve-wracking for me at first because it's a personal thing to share your writing, especially within like the first draft stages, which is what most workshops will ask you to do towards the end of it. Um, but you get
Oh,
welcoming. You don't get like there's no judgment in any of these spaces. And then is it lagging again?
it did a
Yeah,
little.
just a little bit.
Should I turn my video off? Because I feel like it might help a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Does that sound a little better?
It did.
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Sorry about this, guys. The rain is definitely not helping on my side either.
Nah, it's all good.
Sorry, what was your question again though?
That's a good question. What was my question
He was saying
again?
like would you recommend writers workshops and like how it's kind of like helped you in a sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, like one of the things that I have to appreciate about this last year is how accessible everything became, right? So writers who I admire that may not necessarily be based in New York, like they're having virtual workshops online that I have access to and now I'm able to join and learn from them. So I think that's a really great tool. And it also gives you the opportunity to network with other writers and you kind of get to see different styles, maybe even try to change your writing up a little bit more to see what your style could be in the future as well. But I think it's all a part of the growth. So for sure, I would recommend it.
Cool. Um, I know that you spoke a little about wanting to publish a book. Is that the only personal goal that you have right now, in terms of your writing pieces, or is there like something more that you want to do for your poetry?
Um, no, I think the goal for me, like my primary goal for sure, is getting this book together. But on the side, I did earlier this month have my first virtual open mic, and it was a really great turnout. So it's something that I might want to keep going on a monthly basis. And with the city opening up too, like I think it would be awesome to kind of even explore some spaces where we could do some COVID friendly events. So I think for sure I have been enjoying, like I said, just the networking part of being in this community. So I definitely want to keep that going on the side as I'm working on the book.
Cool, that's cool. Was hosting your first open mic, was that kind of like nerve wracking a little, or did you feel like, nah, I got this, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I like to tell people that I am like a walking ball of anxiety. And that Sunday, I was just not feeling as prepared as I wanted to, just because, like, I think it was also right as my semester was wrapping up. So it was during like finals week and stuff for me.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot at once. And yeah, I just felt really frazzled by the time it was actually time to start the show. But again, the turnout was great. We had 13 people come out, and two of those were rappers and the rest were poets. But it was a really awesome time. And I think it's going to be fun to do another one soon.
That's cool.
Actually, I have a question. So amongst all of your like pieces that you've done so
Sure.
far, do you have like a favorite one in terms of the content itself, or just like the experience that you went through when you wrote that piece?
That's actually a good question. There are certain poems that like I'll go back to and enjoy because I'll remember that it was one of those poems that I was able to get out in like half an hour, right? And be happy with it. Not all of my poems are like that. The majority of my poems take more than a week or two to write and finish before I feel like it's complete. But in terms of content, I think honestly my favorite changes as I keep writing because I feel like I see the growth in each of my poems. So as like I keep writing new poems, more and more of my recent poems are what I would call my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I still go back to my quote unquote classics, I guess.
So I want to go back a little. You mentioned that you're very close to graduating college. Um,
Yeah.
for the viewers that don't know, what are you majoring in?
Oh, I'm actually majoring in psychology, which is like 180 from what I'm talking about on here. But initially, I was double majoring in psych and creative writing, but then the credit requirements for that got a little too extensive. And I know that I don't want to be in undergrad for too long because eventually I do have to go on for my master's. So I'm focusing on psychology right now while kind of keeping writing as more of a
Denise?
Hello?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
This is horrid. I'm so sorry about this connection, you guys.
it's all
it's
good. It's all
fine.
good. Every router has a day.
Yeah, this is just something that we're gonna have to do now since things are kind of like virtual, but we hopefully want to like have our own little space where we can have people in person.
Yeah.
No, dope.
Hey, were you done explaining everything or
Yeah, I just didn't know like how much of what I said lagged out. If you caught the end of it, if anything.
the last thing I heard was that you the credit requirement for creative writing and psychology was getting too out of hand. So you just started majoring, like just focusing on your psych and having your creative writing on the side. I think that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay. Well, I actually don't have any more questions. I don't know if you do, Malik.
um, I do actually. Uh, we are coming close to the time, but before we do go, I how would you feel with reciting one of your poems for us in the audience?
Oh, sure, I could do that.
Oh wait,
I
can you put on
haven't.
your camera for that? You
Yeah,
gotta turn on your camera.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, give me a second, because I definitely stepped aside. But I also need to pull the poem up, or
No problem, no problem.
I don't know what kind of like vibe I want to go for with today, but let's see. All of my poems just like feel so sad, and I just like I don't want to kind of relate to this whole Pisces thing too much.
Listen, it's fine. Who knows? Maybe one of our viewers out there is feeling the same way you were feeling when you wrote the piece. So,
Facts. And right now it's raining. It kind of fits the mood too.
well, I don't. It won't be. I don't know if it's gonna be raining when the video comes out. So you know. But
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna try this video one more time, and hopefully it doesn't crash out on me. Okay, is it still okay? Am I lagging?
yeah,
Yeah, sir.
no,
Okay.
you're good.
So I'm going to share a short piece that I wrote called Color Me Intrigued. And yeah, so if roses are indeed red and violets are somehow blue, then it must be true that I want you. But is it true that you want me to? I have no name for this feeling that you leave me with, but the purple haze of my mind after you smile at me limits my capacity for words, anyways. If I tell you my tongue is bubblegum pink, does it tempt you to taste me? I want to know if you'll find that comfort smells a lot like my orange flavored lip balm. I've been told more than once that I inherited my father's green thumb, and on some days I want nothing more than to grab a hold of this yellow tulip I've planted by your name in my heart, turn it into a bouquet, and offer it to you in hopes that you'll have me as a friend, if nothing more. But I make the mistake of looking into your brown eyes, and suddenly things are no longer so black and white. You bring color into my world artfully enough to render a poet like me speechless. That has to mean something, doesn't it? That's it.
That's
Nah, that was, I like that. That was nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Off
right.
the
Well, go ahead.
oh no, the floor is yours.
No. You go ahead.
I was gonna say off the strength of that poem alone, we gotta have you back for another episode someday.
Can we do it on a sunny day? And I promise my internet will be so much better.
Definitely. Shoot,
Then for sure, I would love
hopefully
to
you
be
can be in
back.
person.
Then yeah. I mean the city's opening up, guys. Who knows where we'll be 3 months from now? So
Yeah.
fingers crossed. But thank you guys for having me. It was fun coming on and talking to you guys.
Anytime,
Thank you.
anytime. Before you do go, let's can you give your IG out one more time just for our viewers who may not be able to like see it?
Yeah, it's awkwardly.chaotic. Chaotic is spelled Khaotic. I'm only on Instagram for the time being. I don't know if I'm going to expand for my writing social medias, but we'll see.
Okay. Um, and with that, I guess we'll just wrap up. Again, thank you for coming on to the podcast. We hope to hear, your many adventures in terms of Awkwardly Chaotic, and hope to see that book get published.
Thank you. That makes me nervous, but thank you.
No
No,
pressure,
no
no pressure at all.
pressure. But yes, like, comment, share this video, get her name out there, let everybody know about this amazing poet, and we'll see y'all on the next episode.
All right, bet.
Thank you guys.